Is that wrong?
I threw it. Funny story, I actually threw up in front of his office.
Tastes like shit.
Don't be gross.
Yellowmouth Yucking from Asshole. Here we go.
Yuck Yuck. Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's yucking time.
Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, the yuckers of all shapes and sizes, you're listening to the YYPP, the Yuck Yuck Productions podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Christensen. Sean, will you grab that door real quick? Just throw it most of the way closed. We'll be good. Close enough. We're good. All right. I'm leaving that in.
That didn't even work. I just made a loud noise.
Just threw styrofoam at the door. What you think was gonna happen, bro?
What the hell?
All right. Hell hath no fury like the Sean on the Monday morning at 7 a.m. How you doing, man?
That's right, man. I'm looking like a. What am I looking like? I'm looking like a gorilla that just got in a fight with a grizzly bear. That's what I'm looking like with this hair, bro.
Crazy.
Look like I got my face ripped off by the opposite predator. I was listening to a thing about what would happen if a silverback gorilla got in a fight with a grizzly bear, bro.
The gorilla would win, right?
No, I think the grizzly bear would win, bro.
You think so?
Dude.
It's just got more meat than him?
So one thing is a grizzly bear is larger. We're not going to get into this because you can find someone else's podcast to listen to this conversation on. But just so you know, a grizzly bear is larger and it's faster than a...
It's faster.
Oh, yeah. They can run, I think it's a margin of 5 miles per hour. Grizzly bear can run faster than a silverback gorilla.
Boy.
Dude, people think grizzlies are just fat and slow, bro. They'll rip your face off.
Yeah. A lot of people say that, like, the only way to win a race against a bear is, like, downhill.
Yep, because
they'll roll over themselves. But even then, they'll just fucking...
Dude,
shit. I mean, they'll somersault over you.
That's right, man. They will wreck your life. Both of those animals will kill you.
Yeah. No, a gorilla will just rip you to pieces, and a bear will eat your face. You don't mess with either of them.
Yeah, but a bear... So what's interesting about bears, though, is polar bears and black bears, I think, are the only bears that will literally hunt you and eat you. I think, like, grizzly bears, brown bears, and any other kind of bear that's not a polar bear or black bear, will kill you, but they won't actively eat you, and they're actually afraid of you. Whereas a polar bear will hunt you, I think. A polar bear will literally, like, smell you and hunt you down and kill you. Whereas a grizzly, if they don't have cubs, if it's just a grizzly, they'll leave you alone, bro. Like, they'll hear you, and if you make a lot of noise, they'll avoid you, because they don't want to kill you, bro. You think about that grizzly. He's the king of the freaking forest. He's like 900 to 1,200 pounds.
I mean, that just depends on what else is in the forest, but...
Yeah, I think man, those are special creatures right there, man. They're huge. That grizzly bear stands taller than this room, bro.
They're tasty, too. Taste good.
Yeah, I hear they're pretty tasty. Well, no, grizzlies aren't, I don't think. Other bears are.
My dad just makes sausage out of them. That's all I know. Some kind of bear.
I hear that grizzlies, because of the salmon that they eat, like, the salmon's, most of the time, it's just rotten. Like, they just eat. So so they taste like, I hear grizzlies taste like crap because their diet, but other bears that feast on, like, are more omnivorous, like they're omnivorous. Yeah, they eat berries and stuff.
Grass-fed creatures usually taste better than carnivores.
Yeah.
That's why we don't actively hunt wolves to eat them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the carnivorous ones are scavengers too. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I have the beginning of a cold. I am a little sniffly and a little nasally. I apologize.
He's got mucus coming out of his ears. It's funny.
That's what I said last night.
He said that, and I believed him.
Deshaun looked at me and he's like, got a Q-tip, and he's like, what are you doing?
What are you doing, man? Why you got mucus coming out of your ears? I didn't know that you were joking, bro.
Yeah. Like the expression, like you're so full of crap that's coming out your ears.
Yeah.
Same thing, but it's just mucus.
Just mucus.
But God. I feel fine. That's a weird thing. It's just like my sinuses just feel inflamed and there's a lot of mucus. So maybe it's just a sinus infection.
Well, isn't that funny though? Like, you kind of, for me, I'm a super healthy individual. I don't usually go to the hospital. In fact, right now, even though I have full coverage health insurance and an HSA account, I literally don't have a primary physician right now. And so, because I just don't go to the hospital very often. It just doesn't happen for me. Like, even when I get sick, my body just, dude. Gladiator
That's
fights
how I
those
do.
germs and gets out of there.
I like how I announced it, and then I'm starting to sound worse just immediately.
Immediately.
Like, I don't know what happened.
You're like, I'm sick. Your
What the
body's
fuck?
like, ooh, you're right. We're sick.
So, besides me being sick, the new weekly tradition of the show is we want to do something to make the world a better place, one little yuck at a time. So, this week, I wanted to talk about the kind of weird epidemic that's been going around at least Idaho's high schools, where all these kids are starting to vape.
Man, that's some stuff. Vape culture's spreading, bro. It's interesting.
And it's not all bad, but like it's a healthier alternative to smoking, obviously. Like that's a good thing. Like that's the only thing keeping me off the cigarettes right now. It's getting my nicotine in a vaporized source versus the jet fuel and everything else they put in regular cigarettes that give you lung cancer. All the
yeah, and
carcinogens
in the
and
filter
garbage.
is where it's really at, is in the filter of the cigarette.
Yeah, which is
but-
ironic.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's why, people, well, I don't know much about it, so I can't talk about it. But I do know that it's an interesting culture to see. In fact, I was just in a meeting yesterday with two of my social dance club presidents, and we were just talking about the culture of teenagers, and it's almost like things have changed so much, man, since we've been out of high school. Like, it's only been 2.5 years, I think. And people are already, like, just social media wise, I did a poll. I was like, hey, what social media platforms are you guys on so I can market appropriately? And they're like, well, Snapchat's number one, then it goes Instagram, then it goes Twitter. I'm like, oh, you guys don't use Facebook? They're like, Facebook's for old people. I'm like,
Yeah, and then when we were in middle school and high school, if you
Facebook
weren't
was-
using Facebook,
Facebook was the thing,
everyone
man.
was sleeping on you.
That's so weird. Like, even my senior year, like, people were using Facebook, unless I'm wrong, unless I was just not cool and I just didn't have social media, but I'm pretty sure.
But I think that transition started when we were in high school.
It's true. Snapchat came along at that time. And Snapchat really, it makes sense because if you think about it, they use it as more of a texting platform.
Yeah.
And Snapchat seems to be, it would be more efficient. So, like, if I'm trying to explain this situation in a text, I would have to type out in text. Podcasting, if I'm going to use caveman language, if I'm going to use proper grammar, I might say, I am podcasting with Nathan Christensen in his mother's basement around one microphone while being recorded on camera. Whereas I might just take a selfie with the microphone and camera and just say, in your mama's basement. And that's just so much more efficient. And the picture itself gives more information and context to what happened. Whereas if I'm in a text message, you can't tell if I'm angry or sad or, like...
Hashtag no context.
So that's the whole point, is that it's like, it's become, in my opinion, my theory is it's become such a popular platform because it's more efficient. Yeah, I can let you be in the moment with me through a picture, and that's fine. And it's so funny because when you talk to, oh my gosh, it's so funny. Because when you talk to older people about it too, they're like, Snapchat, that's for like sending nudes, right? I can't let my daughter have that. I'm like, bro,
That's
come
what
on.
all parents say too. Is like,
Think about it. Just think. You really think that we're all just sending nudes to each other, every single one of us
you'd be
at all
surprised.
times?
That's what most of parents think. Man, is they're like,
Oh gosh.
I had this one friend, and her parents and I are pretty close. Like they're cool, and they're like, "What do you want Snapchat for? Snapchat's only good for one thing, and it's sending nudes." And I was like, "How'd you know that?" And they're like, "What do you think we use it for?" And I was like,
Whoa. I've never had a parent say that to me, but I've definitely had, and I won't say parents in general. Like I've definitely talked to some specific adults about it, but me as a young adult coming into adulthood, paying my bills and taxes,
Yeah.
I feel like that is too much of a generalization. I mean, so
it is too much of a generalization.
It is, and it's interesting because it's happened before, so it's like historical. It's like if we're taught, if we think about it, people have always been skeptical of new technology, man. And so it's hard because it's like, my gosh, how can you be so like just ignorant to what this could be accomplishing?
Well, a lot of it too is what the older generation still watches, like news and stuff, and the biggest stories that were out was all these kids getting charged with child pornographic charges because they were sending each other nudes, and then they'd screenshot them or whatever, and then they'd get spread around between friends or whatever, and that was every news story that hit.
Yeah, it's colored by media, man. You're absolutely right. But in the same way, it's like your responsibility as a grown human that is not an adolescent anymore, that has a developed prefrontal cortex and intelligence, should be able to take your adult reasoning skills, go in, and if your child, so I'm not a parent necessarily. I mean, of course, my girlfriend has a kid, so I help out in that situation. But I've never birthed a child, nor have I fathered a child.
Yeah.
And so
you
it's like,
you don't consider yourself a parent.
A parent yet. I would consider myself a mentor or an influencer on somebody's life, but not necessarily a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit more than that. But it's just interesting because to me, I would think logically, if my kid were involved in something, then I would spend my time learning that platform because I understand. So here's the other thing is that you will not control your kid, especially in this age. You can't. It's just not possible. That kid, even if you manage to control them for a certain amount of time, there will be a time in which you can't control them, and then they're going to do what they're going to do regardless, right? And so it's not like it's a helpless issue. Like that that's prepared. Like that's nature versus nurture, right? Like that's a long-term thing.
Yeah, strong versus safe.
But that kid, in some instances, they might end up like that's just, you come to terms with that. But also, if you can't stop them from being exposed to that, if you can't, and the other question is, should you, right? Because you might be uneducated and you're just doing it to prove a point. But if you can't stop them, then what you would need to do is learn the full context of that thing instead of assuming the worst and that, everything's just nudes and everything else, and you don't like the fact that it can be deleted or anything like that. To me, it would only make sense for me to be like, all right, well then, if this is what Susie's doing, then I need to learn it 100% so I can be fully educated, so I have some backing and an argument. And in that process, I'm sure that most problems that you have with it will probably be solved. You probably won't think the same way that you did about it before because Snapchat's not for sending nudes. Like literally, it might have been that for maybe a month. Like maybe.
No, well, it's still being used for that. But
yeah, but so is everything else. I can send a nude, and I mean, it's easier and faster to do that. But what did you do before Snapchat?
Yeah,
you sent nudes on text message. What did you do before texting? You freaking had actual photographs that you brought over, or you had a
took them on an old school Polaroid.
What happened with pornography, right? And before the internet was invented, you had to go buy a magazine, and you were sneaking magazines with your friends all over. Like it's not good. I'm not saying that I'm justifying it. I'm just saying that it's like you have done it before yourself, and that's not that'd be like saying that back in the 80s, like the main reason why a kid went to a gas station was to get a porn magazine. Like because porn magazines were available, that's automatically what this kid is obviously doing.
He was going there to steal cigarettes, obviously. It was the 80s.
No, he was going there to buy a pack of whatever was around back then. I don't know if Doritos were a thing, but my gosh, like you can't assume that every single child on this earth is going to be sending news.
You can't assume that your child is signing into the deep web every time they access the internet.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It's just not. But I mean, I get those fears though. Like it's like, that's your kid, so you want to protect him and stuff like that. But honestly, like they're gonna be alienated from you if you're not careful.
Yeah. Well,
I feel.
Back to the vaping issue is because a lot of underage kids are getting, because originally the use of e-cigarette devices for those listening audio version, I'm holding up very heavy,
parenthetical fingers.
yeah, incredibly so. E-cigarettes was to get people to stop inhaling carcinogens on an hourly basis or daily basis, you know. But for some reason, everyone likes the culture of it so much, or at least the new younger crowd likes it so much that like they're willing to be addicted to nicotine to be part of this culture.
Well, do you think it's almost like how cigarettes were in the 50s, where it was like just cool? Like if you're smoking a cigarette,
I mean, it seems like it. Like it's cool and everyone's doing it.
Right. Well, I think also it has to do with the media that's around it, right? You got people blowing smoke rings and, like colored stuff.
Pushing rings and...
Yep, tattoos like that. Kids are getting more tattoos, I think, too. You know, and they're just getting more like, oh my gosh, it's just so... I feel old, bro. Because to me, I'm like, my gosh. But it's the same thing with people my age. What I mean by that, I know I just went on a ridiculous amount of participles. But anyways, it's like this, man. It's like you got all these kids that are running around dressing like gangsters, bro, and vaping and doing their thing. And I just don't want someone to get rocked. Like for no reason, you know, if a kid that's a fake gangster or fake cool kid or whatever gets a tattoo or vapes or wears hats in school, I don't know what, you know, it's just a weird culture. But anyways, if someone like that is fake and they get exposed by someone who's been through real stuff, because it's like in our area there aren't gangs like that, so it's not like people dress like gangsters. They don't. A kid that's been through some hard stuff is just a poor kid. He just wears you can, you know, if he doesn't have very good clothes, you can tell that. Like if his shoes have holes in it or something. Like that's what a kid who's seen some stuff in this area looks like. Not a kid that's, you know, just dressed to the nines and gold chain, you know, or whatever.
It's a weird stylistic choice now.
It's weird because it's
stylistic
fake.
Choice of culture, and it's incredibly fake.
It's incredibly fake, and it's like, man, if that's your culture, that's fine. Like I'm not yucking on some kid's style, you know, but if that culture isn't you, like you're doing that for, you know, to defy your parents, or you're doing that to increase your own self-confidence, like you feel like you've just been made
belonging in a group, then
bro, you can't do, because then when people who have been through some stuff, when you try to relate to them, they'll punch you in your face, bro. You get in a fight, man, because it's like
they'll see through it. Dude, everyone, I wanted to thank you. This reminded me of something I want to talk about before, is everyone can see through a phony.
That's
like
true,
that,
man.
the most important thing is to be real with you and everyone around you that you care about, because everyone
well, it's exhausting too. That's what Gary Vee says, is it's like you can't uphold a fake persona for very long. You don't have the energy to.
Dude, it's hard enough to live one life, let alone to live a second one.
And it's inefficient. What do you want to be fake for?
Yeah.
You just be yourself, and you'll be happier, you'll feel more on key, you know, on point with who you are. You'll feel natural. If you're doing something that you can't naturally do, you know, that's just not possible. It'd be like if I became a computer programmer. Just for the sake of. I don't know why I'd become a computer programmer. Like, as my main... I could see me learning programming just for fun. But me actually being like a frickin' whatever you said, a white hat or whatever, like hacking... I couldn't do that, bro. I couldn't do that. You know, it'd be me being something that I'm not. Or, to your point, if it's a fraudulent thing, that'd be like me being... Because I'm, you know, I came from a hard...
Yeah.
Not necessarily hard, but I came from a rougher background than most of the kids in this area. Yeah. And I don't act tough. Like, I'm not trying to be tough with people, you know, because it's not me. That's not my personality, you know, so I can't act that way. I can't even act. I've been through that, and I can't even act that way, you know. I can't act like I'm always creeping on people and just in my hoodie or have my head, you know, like I can't, you know. It's not possible for me. I'm just a happy-go-lucky guy. I could never act like a freaking gangster.
You had enough hate and violence in your childhood that it's like we don't need to spread more of that.
It's true, man. I just don't. It just doesn't. It's not necessary. It's also, you know, that goes to fighting too, which is, you know, And it goes back to fraudulent stuff. I think it was Joe Rogan that I was watching that was talking about like fake martial artists. But also when you know how to fight, and I was talking with this kid also, he does a lot of performances through karate and he does a lot of weapon stuff. But when you know how to fight, you don't want to fight, bro. Like if you know what you're doing, unless you truly enjoy the sport, but fighting's a sport because you can spar. Fighting's not a sport because you're fighting to the death all the time. Yeah. It takes a special person to like fighting somebody to the point of beating the hell out, like just a street fight. Like that's different, man. That's a whole different animal. You shouldn't like fighting because you gotta, like, in that situation, someone's gonna get hurt, period. So unless you like hurting people, or being hurt, then there's no...
That's why most people don't like confrontation.
Yeah. Because it's just not worth it. It's just like, man, if you're yelling at me, I can just walk away. It's fine.
Yeah.
You swing on me, I can just body slam you into a wall. I don't have to even fight you.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said, too, most people who fight don't need to. Like, they know how to handle a situation.
Yeah. And
that comes with the confidence of being able to handle that situation if it did go south.
Man.
It's a weird thing.
Yeah, it's strange. But anyways, fraudulent people, I mean, you're right, dude. Like, posers, they're not the best, man.
Like I said, and I don't know why they're doing it, but it's like Prop 65 in California. I don't remember how recently it was passed, but on all the... Let me pull it out real quick. On every single bottle of vape juice now, it says in the warning, let me see if I can find it again real quick. Danger, this product contains nicotine and is not for anyone under the legal smoking age or women that are pregnant or breastfeeding, as well as any persons with existing medical conditions. Keep away from children and pets. Nicotine is a toxic and addictive substance. The product has not been approved by the FDA. California Prop 65 warning. This product contains chemicals known by the state of California to cause cancer, birth defects, and reproductive harm. So, that last part, the Prop 65 warning, reproductive harm, that's not just women. It's dudes too.
Oh no, man.
So, there's a bunch of dudes getting limp dick, aka erectile dysfunction, from, it's called acrylamide, I think. I'm not sure if that's a correct pronunciation, but it's basically a chemical that comes from the oil in the juice. It's a vegetable-based juice that they use. And you can get it from even, like, green vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts. If you fry them, it makes the same chemical. And if you eat enough of it, I guess, like, over time, it just degrades.
Dude, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So I think it's weird because this is what I was talking about before with, like, it took us 60 years to figure out that cigarettes were bad for you. For a long time, doctors even recommended, and they had commercials like 9 out of 10 doctors recommend Camel cigarettes, or Marlboros or whatever at the time. But I think
that's hard,
probably,
man. Because there's not, you're right. So, and it's funny because I used to work with, so as you know, I used to work with Idaho Drug for Youth. And I still do Idaho Drug for Youth, but also the Idaho Meth Project, Project Filter, which is a smoking organization. And so I had to learn all the facts. And one of the things that's interesting is that really to say anything definitive about a vape other than what they're advertising with the vape culture or whatever, or what science has proved now is actually not correct. Not necessarily because, so like right now, like what you know about vaping, like if someone says, oh, it has this amount of nicotine or whatever, that's all true. But the long-term effects can't be measured yet because it's such a new product that they can't.
And so we're just barely starting to figure out how this, so I think in like
so 30, essentially you're a test group. You're a control
30,
group,
40 years from now, I think we're just going to there's going to be a downpour or a downgrade in the amount of people being born. It'll be like opposite of the baby boomers because there'll be so many people with birth defects from the vape culture. And I'm not trying to, like I said, I vape, and this is something that I worry about now, and I'm trying to see if maybe there's a different solution because I don't want to have I want to have kids at some point in my life. I want to have a happy, healthy family someday.
Yeah.
And so it's just going to be, it was just something I was thinking about, is like, it's the same thing with the marijuana thing. It's like, oh, smoking marijuana is good for you and it cures cancer. And I've ranted so many times about how people throw way too many passes to weed. Like, it is still a drug.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I feel like
It's just like
anything. So
when you smoke anything, like, you're still putting carcinogens in your lungs. Period.
yeah, and something that's interesting about, and I don't know anything. Again, like I don't know much. The only thing that I know about drugs is that I've seen drugs like methamphetamines, heroin, whatever, destroy people's lives. I've seen that for sure. Like synthetic weed, like spice. I've seen that. I've felt that firsthand. As far as violence through that thing. It doesn't mean that I have any educated opinions on it, other than what I've seen it do to people. With marijuana, it's also an interesting thing because I don't think that it's bad necessarily. In fact, I think that it's very helpful in some instances.
Well, no, it's like...
Yeah, the only thing that I'm worried about is that it's a decrease in productivity, and that's from my own personal experience. Like, it's not even from necessarily thinking or it's not like I'm in the, an uneducated middle class person that's like, oh, I've never smoked weed in my life, nor have I had any friends that smoke weed, but I'm going to have an opinion on this. No. A lot of my family smokes weed. A lot of people that I know, I've witnessed, and I've smoked weed before myself.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, and so it's 70%
70% of Americans have.
Yeah.
It's like,
and so it's like, when you look at these situations, I'm heavily involved in a lot of people's lives that partake in smoking marijuana, and my only thing is this: so if it is a decrease in productivity, which is what I've witnessed personally, that's okay as long as you're okay with it. But if it's inhibiting you,
it's detrimental.
Yeah, if you actively have said to my face that you want to get something done, say you have a dream or something, and you're like, this is what I wish I wanted, I could do, or I'm going to do, or whatever. Maybe it's get a college degree, maybe it's own your own business, maybe it's whatever. If you have said that to me, and we've had a passionate conversation about that, and you've expressed your dreams to me, and then I notice that marijuana has taken that ambition out of you, in other words, it's made you lazier than you were before, then that's where my problem comes in.
Or made you reorganize your priorities, because that's what I've seen. Like, it's been proven marijuana is not chemically addictive. Like, you're not gonna die from withdrawals of marijuana and go through like the fucking sweats and everything. I mean, the sweats and everything. Gosh, I'm having a really hard time with the no swearing thing today because I feel very passionate about this.
No, you're fine.
I've seen this happen to many people multiple times, to where they reorganize their priorities to make sure they have money for weed. And that's where it's like, that's where you have a problem. If you're like, it'll start out as like, okay, I'm gonna have to sell a few of my old things, which is cool or whatever. You don't need them anymore, and then it's like, well, I'm out of stuff to sell and I don't have as many hours of work or whatever. Okay, now you know what, my roommate has all these video games on his shelf that he doesn't even play. They're literally just sit there to look pretty. I'll snag a few of them that are worth money and go sell them to GameStop, and that'll give me a 20 sec. Like,
yeah, it's just the mindset, and it's really, I mean, that could be anything. If you have that mindset in your life, I know plenty of people that smoke weed that aren't thieves or aren't trying to tweak on people. But the thing about it is that's the only problem they have. So if you ever get into a position in which I knew at one point that you had a dream or you were going to accomplish something, and I noticed that marijuana has inhibited that, even though you might be saying, because here's the other thing is I think there's a psychological principle that applies to, which is, and I don't know if it would be the same thing or not, this is just speculation, but it's like with Hitler and his soldiers, right? So those were regular people, right, that were manipulated into doing something that was against what they thought was okay, right?
Slowly,
it was against their
time. Yep.
It was against their morality. I think that's even though that's an extreme example, I think that's true with some things, in that you might change your values or morality towards a certain thing if a situation is heavy or deep enough, right?
Yeah.
If you think that you're physically in danger, which is the case for those soldiers, right? Then they made that decision. They thought that, well, he will kill me if I don't do this. So this is a survival thing. right? But when you think about marijuana, it's not that extreme.
The camera just went out. Okay, and it's going at 30-minute markers too. All right, enjoy some elevator music while the camera returns. Dun, dun, dun. Who's the best around? All right, we're back. Sorry about that.
So anyways, I think that with marijuana, it could... I'm about to fall backwards.
For those on the audio version only, the Sean almost spilled backwards.
I'm about to RJ Scoville my way out of here. All right, anyways. So I do think that, though, with marijuana, you could shift around your priorities, like you said, and make that the thing. And that's what's scary.
Detrimental to you.
Yeah, that's what's scary is that...
And I'm not, double down on this. I'm not trying to put a harsh on anyone's high. Like, there are medical benefits that have been proven, and that's why it was legalized medicinally first,
Yep.
And it's just like...
But if you have any medical problems and you're just doing it to get through life, that's okay. But I'm just saying that if that's inhibiting your creative process, or if that in any way is lowering your your ambition, not your inhibition, your ambition, then that's kind of messed up, man.
Yeah.
And you might not know what's going on too. So, anyways, it's interesting, but we just don't have enough data on vapes yet, I think, and that's the thing that it's just so. Another thing that I was talking about with someone yesterday about is that it's just so people are just so defensive all of a sudden. It's just like, man,
at least I'm not smoking.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, it's just like you can't. And it's vape culture, but it's also just anything that you challenge somebody with. Like, anytime you make a single comment on what they're doing in their life, it's automatically defense. It's like they think that you're...
No one's open to criticism, man.
Yeah, it's like they think that they're being attacked to something, and it's like, man, I'm not attacking you in any way. I'm just trying to say that I've noticed something. I've collected some data, over a certain amount of time.
I've known you for a while.
Yep.
Let's be real for a second.
I've collected some data.
I love you, but...
And honestly, like, this is, I'm just curious. It's not even like I'm presenting it as a problem. I'm presenting it as, I'm curious. Where is your headspace at? Where are you at in this situation? And what's going on? And people they just want to rip your face off, man. I don't think that I'm like that, If someone asks me where my headspace is, I've never been the angry teen that's going to be, Yeah. I'm never...
I used to be, but that's not a path to enlightenment, man.
Yeah, it's just not. You have to be open-minded to people, and there's certain things that you can't compromise on, like there's certain choices that I've specifically made in a certain direction in my life that people that are older and wiser than me disagree with, but I've chosen specifically to tear out of that mold. Otherwise, there's plenty of stuff that I listen to my elders about. People tell me stuff every day that I listen,
That's a weird characteristic that me and you share, is that me and you have made a lot of mistakes, but we haven't made a lot of unnecessary mistakes. Like, if someone grabs us by the arm, is like, hey man, listen to me, bend down that road, you don't need to, it's not worth it,
right?
Then we'll be like, oh, okay. Like, if we trust that person and believe them, like, we'll...
Yeah, but there's just certain things, and I honestly do believe that that's intuition, and that's God, in my opinion. Like, it's like there are certain things that I feel deeply, viscerally in my soul, and I'm like, I can't compromise on this. I have to do this the way that I'm going to do it. And but here's the other thing is that, and it's an illusion too, that there are plenty of 30-year-olds out there, right? And so what's interesting is you'll get conflicting opinions, which is why you have to diversify in who your mentors are and who you listen to, because you got to understand that there are thousands of people, millions of people, even maybe billions of people that are the same age as the person you're talking to, But that 30-year-old is saying, okay, I've lived longer on this world than you have, and I've done this, and it didn't work. And then there's another 30-year-old saying, I have also lived just as long in this world, and I did this, and it did work. So you have to take all of the advice that you're getting, and you need to you need to really focus on what is going.
Yeah,
you know,
process it through your own lens and the scope of your own life.
Yeah, and it's contextual to you too. You know, you're in a different circumstance. So something that didn't work for somebody else could honestly be because of them, or it could be because of the year that they were in, or it could be because at that time, you know, black people weren't being believed, and you know, like whatever.
There's a lot of different factors, and I think the most important thing for that is just to not so much put your faith in people, but to take specific values from that person that you like.
It's true, man.
Like for a long time, I was singing the praises of Jordan Peterson, and he's like a big free speech advocate, and as am I, even though I don't have nearly as big a name as he does. But I loved his book and everything, and I would just like tell everyone, like, if you got a problem with your life, consult this book. I'm sure there's an answer for it somewhere in here. You know, and then, you know, the situation with Kavanaugh and everything, he said that Kavanaugh should just step down. When it's just like, personally, even if what he did was true, it was 30 years ago, man. And that's, if people were holding me accountable for what I did when I was 8, that would be crazy. Like, that would be...
And see, that gets into an interesting situation then, because I actually don't believe that he should have been elected. I think that Kavanaugh definitely, because he became a judge, right?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure he's in, as far as I know.
So when it comes to that important of a situation, that important of a position, I should say, I definitely don't believe that he should have been forgiven for that. But here's why.
Well, I'm not saying he should be forgiven,
or even be able to be a judge. In my opinion,
there's a statute of limitations for a reason.
Right.
He hasn't done anything criminal since then.
What I more looked at was what kind of conversations that caused, because I'm not a political guy. So I still, the only reason why I comment on it is because personal friends of mine were very offended, and for good reason. I mean, it's still a crime, but to me, because it would go back to, like, I don't know, if some kid was racist when he was 10 and lynched a black kid on accident or something. Like,
did something crazy.
Something crazy like that, right? Where it's like, literally, they've taken the joy out of somebody's life or whatever, or something. You know, I would not be able to see a statute of limitations apply to that situation. But also, regardless of that hotspot, the conversations that it caused were disheartening because of the amount of people that, I mean, so it's a complex issue, right? And that case
situation
was
complex.
So complex because it really is about it's witch hunts, man. It really is about, you know, McCarthy stuff and the crucible, like, just the crying out majority is this, that, you know, there has to be something done. There is a lot of culture around rape. You know, there's a lot of verbiage and actions that are being perpetuated by men that are in that circumstance. The things that make it more complex are this, right? Women have a right to fear things, and they're obviously have to be more scared walking across the parking lot than I do, right? I'm a very big guy, right? And so statistically, I'm not going to be attacked.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and it's not to say, because I'm definitely not as scared as a woman would be walking across the parking lot, but if I'm walking across the parking lot with my girlfriend, a predatory man is a predatory man, right? So if some stupid person decides, I'm trying not to cuss here, right? But if some stupid person decides that they're going to comment, right, or catcall towards my girlfriend or do something like that, I'm included in that position. Or say if I'm walking down the street and I see someone getting raped, like, that's just as scary for me to jump into that situation and help her, right? Because I might get stabbed to death in that situation. I might sacrifice my life taking him down so she can run, and I might get killed, but she got away, you know, things like that. It's like, if I'm in that situation and there's a large group of men walking across a parking lot, I'm just as scared as my girlfriend is, because I'm going to be the one that's going to, she's not strong enough, right? She's not strong enough to defend herself against a large group of men, and I might not be either, but between me and her, I'm definitely going to kick some more butt than she is, right? Yeah. And so I have to be just as afraid. I'm tensing up too, because if those dudes decide to start something, and there's 5 of them, like, things are going through my mind, like gang rape is going through my mind, her being assaulted is going through my mind as well. It's not the same, but it is the same because we're both going to be assaulted. They might not rape me, but they're definitely going to beat the hell out of me, stab me, do whatever, right? Or they could. Yeah. And so even though, like, and again, it's not the same because when I'm walking alone, that's not, I mean, technically it is. I still think, you know, just being a weary I don't know if other men think about this, but when I'm in a parking lot and I see 5 white dudes, you know, and I'm black or whatever in Idaho, I have to be careful, you know, like, I have that same mindset and a survival complex, but I understand that just a woman in general, because of the stigma that's been created, is definitely going to be more afraid, but it's a complex issue. And it also goes into accusations, you know, of, you know, so I dealt with this when I was going through the court system through my CPS case, right? Which is this, that there was no physical evidence of abuse in my circumstance. And so what I had to do is, it was just basically my word against my mother's. And ultimately that rang true. I was out of the system, but literally I had to tell the court that I was going to run away if they sent me back, and that was the only reason why they didn't send me back immediately, because again, there's no physical proof, and that's not the court's fault. The reason why is because there's a large statistic of kids that don't like what their parents are doing that will cry wolf and get out of that situation even though nothing happened.
Yeah. South Park did the episode called The M Word.
Mm-hmm. And so you have to be very careful. And I dealt with that firsthand, where it's like literally they have things like guardian ad litem's. That's something that I had, where it's like they're the right hand of the judge. The judge can't be in the household at all times, so this guardian ad litem goes in. So it's not like, here's the thing, and it's kind of an emotional hot button for me, is if there was nothing happening, I would not have gotten taken out of the household. Even though I threatened to run away, they still wouldn't have ruled in my favor if nothing was happening. It took a long process of investigation, CPS workers dealing with my mother, you know, again, our guardian ad litem being in that situation. Those are professionals, psychological professionals. It's not like they're not, you know, and there's a lot of stuff that like I got assigned the same personal counselor as my mother did, and family counselor. So the counselor that was handling my personal counseling, my mother's personal counseling, and our family counseling was the same person, right? That's very skewed, you know. So it's a very complex situation because it is happening. It's not like no woman ever has framed a man for raping her, and so, you know, that's not even relevant. That happens a lot, you know. And so it's a situation where it's such a loaded thing that's been building up pressure for so long because it hasn't been being talked about, that now, even though there are other issues that are applying to the situation, the largest issue is that men are, you know, there's a lot of men out there that are just shitheads, dude. Just plain fact.
People saying that rape culture is not a myth, or people saying that rape culture is a myth, are insane. Like, why do you think people abuse Rufinol and stuff? That's a whole nother conversation.
We don't want to be. We don't want to get yucking on Cosby number 2 in this.
Yeah. So to back up one step first and try to tie it back in. I still don't think Kavanaugh should have been a judge, but for not for that reason. I think when the accusation came out, like you said, the conversations that it opened. If he would have been like, yeah, sure, let's do an FBI investigation, the fact that he was like, I don't really want an investigation, that was like, ooh, you know? I was like, you got something you want to hide then, buddy, which is not good. Like I said, I think people should focus on the statute of limitations. I think the statute of limitations are there for a reason. Yeah. But but just the way he carried himself as a man in the court, and like how immediately he did just the same thing that his accusers did, that were just like, how dare you do this to me, and how dare you, you know, all this that's affected my family. It's just like, man, that is not... that is not someone who should be a judge for our nation. Should be,
Right. And to me, it's also like, when you think about the situations, if you can't automatically have empathy for somebody in that situation, then I don't think you ever will. Like, if your first inclination is not to say, holy crap, exactly. If your first inclination is to not believe them, then my gosh, because I don't think that the problem, now that I think, because again, I don't know anything about politics, so it's interesting that we're getting in this conversation, right? But what I hear is the frustration was also that they didn't want it to be investigated, right? Mm-hmm. So even if I don't think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that the majority of people were saying that she wasn't accusing him of something that he didn't do. What they were saying is you're not even having an investigation about this. Like, you're just automatically just saying that it's not true, not giving her the right to be you're not trying to investigate this situation.
It was also weird too, because the letter that was the accusation made was done in a heinous way.
Right.
Where the other senator, I think, that received it 3 years prior, so they were pretty much holding it and waiting for it to use as a ace card, which is just like, the dude was already, in government. It should have been used then. It's not like,
yeah, man.
It was
it's
used
obviously
with a political agenda, which was messed up. There was, like we said, the situation was complicated as heck. But to back up a step, how do we get on this? Hold up, people. Man,
I think we were talking about fraudulency, bro.
No, we were a little bit past that, because I brought it back to the vape culture after that. Anyways.
Yeah. All I'm saying, man, is that it's complex, but it's also, I think, it's funny with these issues, right? Because they are things that need to be talked about, but they're also specifically made that way, Like, this is a highly controversial... It almost goes back to the Eminem and MGK thing, right? Why would they pull something like that off? Some people debate that it's because Eminem was washed up and he wanted to just cause stuff, but I think it's because they wanted to make money, bro. Because you know how many sales went through the roof of that album, or that
just how many downloads?
Yeah, because people had to. It was ridiculously genius, because now everybody that's not involved in this conversation, that doesn't know hip hop at all, feels the need to be educated on what the hell is happening. So literally, if you think about it,
these are the only times I talk about politics, is when it's a hot button issue and people are like, "Ooh, what do you think about this?" I'm like, "I don't know. I gotta go.
Yep, exactly.
Listen to this hearing.
You have to go freaking research it," and that's exactly what people did, because it wasn't fun necessarily, but it was still lighthearted enough to where it was like a joke, So people are like, "Well, let me just go listen to." A couple songs from the Kamikaze album, see, what Eminem said, and they're like, well, what did MGK say?
Like pennies, and then you times that by a jillion.
Take my girlfriend, for instance. She does not listen to rap music.
She's a good Christian girl. She does not listen to rap music.
And she doesn't want to, too. It's not even like she's refraining from that. She doesn't like rap music that well, Mm-hmm. She likes contemporary Christian music. She's a pianist, so she likes beautiful musical arrangements. Mm-hmm. Not saying that rap's not beautiful in its own way. Don't hate on me,
She's
right?
Beautiful in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. But she likes orchestral things. She likes piano arrangements. Huge. Array. I don't know the word for it, but she likes music, right? Like the nerdy kind of music theory. And so she likes rap music. But it's not her favorite. But she was still interested in the thing, and she listened to Kamikaze, and she also listened to Rap Devil, and then she listened to obviously his other. So she was in it, even though she would not typically be in it, and that's a genius thing. So I'm not saying that this politics thing, this Kavanaugh thing, happened to rile stuff, but they knew going in the way that our media handles things, it brought up so many good conversations that needed to happen. But I'm always weary, because that's, are we being manipulated by what people are trying to get us to talk about? Are we being distracted from something? Are we being molded in a certain way?
You're starting to talk like Dave King. I don't like this.
Yeah. Yeah, not in a conspiracy way, but honestly in a psychology. Because again, I
That's
like
what Elon Musk
psychology.
was talking about in
Yeah, I mean, it's
The Great
true.
AI.
And it's almost, maybe they're I don't know, maybe people are collecting data. It honestly is good though. It's good because now as a society it forces us to hash out our opinions, right?
Yeah.
So when we have those conversations, that's what we were talking about. So back to people getting offended easily, right?
Oh, okay.
And this ties in perfectly. It's that.
No. It was taking specific values from people.
Oh yeah,
versus
you're right.
Worshiping people. You shouldn't worship false gods, but you should appreciate their values.
Right. And still, when it comes to these politics, you gotta be careful, because if you're going into that situation thinking that somebody is attacking you, we're not having a conversation at that point.
It's a battle.
We're having an argument.
It's
That's
a
what
war,
an argument
and people
is.
only get, they only go farther apart.
Yeah.
It's not. That's why. Like I said before, the reason why the new logo is purple on the lips and yellow on the teeth was yellow is because for the yellow mouth, yuck yuck. But purple was because I want to close the gap between the red and the blue, the Democrats and the Republicans, the liberals and the conservatives. The healthier world lies in the middle, where people are having conversations and fixing issues.
Yeah,
versus...
and they're conversations. That's exactly what they need to be. They can't be. You can't be in an argument, because as soon as you initiate combat with somebody verbally, right, which is an argument. Also, me and my dance partner were talking about this too. When you initiate combat in the form of an argument, what you are doing is trying to get someone to come over to your opinion, right? Or you're trying to degrade them in some way, is what it turns into. Yeah. It may not start that way, but emotions just start charging and arguments turn into huge debate. So to me, when we have a conversation about something, that is more useful because it's not emotionally charged. And I'm not an emotionally charged guy. When it comes to conversations, I'll get heated and passionate, but I don't yell in people's face, and I definitely don't think that you're wrong, if that makes sense. Like, I don't come at it from a situation of you're wrong, but that's the problem, is that we can't have conversations, it seems like, and we need to change that. If you have an opinion, your opinion may not be correct. I was reading in a psychology textbook yesterday that it's an objective reality. There is an objective reality in some situations. Yeah. And the way that you see that is through the lens of your values and morals. Yeah. And so it's like, when you're dealing with an objective reality, which, you can argue exists or doesn't exist depending on the situation, the only way you'll find out whether it exists is whether you have a conversation. Because otherwise, if you have an argument, there is no objective reality. It's just subjective to whatever you want to do.
And it's just like... And you may not come to an agreement. You may not find a middle ground. But at least you two will be closer to the middle. Mm-hmm. And so it might take multiple conversations. And it might take multiple conversations with more people added and different people or whatever. But what brings people closer together is not... It's not the people that are having the conversation. It's the values that our people are debating about.
Right.
Between both sides.
Yeah. And it's it's crazy stuff. I don't know. It's to be human, I mean, that's what it's about, though, is having that, being colorful and having empathy. Being able to see at the end of the day that even though I had a conversation with you, like, we're going to break bread at the end of the day. I'm going to have a meal with you. I'm not going to... There are very few times that I can count in my personal life that I've had a conversation with somebody and had that go so south that we didn't talk to each other for a long time.
Oh, man.
I don't, because
I've had them in the past, but it's like I don't have them anymore, because it's just like, if it's... I'm trying to figure out. Okay, so I'm gonna start putting it like this. Like Owen Benjamin, he's like a weird musical stand-up comedian. I don't think he does much anymore, but he called in to the TDS, and
Right.
they were just talking, doing podcast stuff or whatever, and because he makes like a lot of like woman jokes and stuff, and but it, he even says like it's all in good fun and stuff, and like he has a very healthy relationship with his wife, and it's like one of the things that he does is just like, if anyone ever gets like mad to the point where they're yelling and stuff, just like, oh, okay, we need to have a serious conversation. So one of the things they do is like, if they get into an argument to the point where they're yelling, they have to lisp.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if they break and they start laughing in the middle of this argument, it wasn't something that was worth arguing about anyway, but if they're angry and feel passionate about it, to work through the lisp and get the whole thing out, then it's like, oh, okay, we need to talk about this, and it's just like, at the end of the day, man, life's too short to be yelling at each other. And
there's just better things to do. I mean, gosh, the fact that people stood around hundreds of years ago and just philosophized on things, like
that's crazy.
Well, I mean, and they didn't
do that
have,
a lot too
obviously they didn't have as much to do in the world as we do now. But
That's crazy.
In the same way, it's like, now that you do have as much to do, you guys could be doing something else, and you could philosophize while you're doing something else. You could go run a mile while you're philosophizing. That might even change your attitude, right? You might be angry, but by the time you're done running, you're just too exhausted to be angry, and so now your opinion might have changed.
Yeah. I don't remember which philosopher it was, or who it was, but there's like a famous quote from someone that says like, always assume, that was Gary Vaynerchuk. Always assume that the person you're sitting across from knows more than you, and figure out what you can learn from them. And then hopefully they'll have the same attitude as what they can learn from you. And that's where the better place. So since we're winding down on time here, just to wrap up this week, kids, if you're not addicted to nicotine, don't start vaping.
Yeah, man.
Make your wee go soft. Not messing around. It's for real.
There's no reason to do it. There's plenty of other things that'll make you look cool. Try ballroom dancing.
Yeah.
If you can dance...
Number 2.
Girls love it. Gotta be careful though.
Yeah.
Because older girls love it too. Don't want to turn into a cougar hunter.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Don't be a phony. Everyone sees through a phony, and it'll just wreck your world. Don't be someone who you're not.
You ain't gotta peek
if you don't know
man.
who you are, do some soul searching, figure it out. But don't be someone you're not. You know when you're not. You may not know who you are, but you definitely know who you're not. And
man. Yeah.
Try to look at the world through more than one lens. Try to
Gotta switch them out once in a while, man.
Yeah, have a conversation with people.
That's right. Absolutely. Nathan, just so you know, if you could hear that over the microphone, we just shook hands. You could hear the verbal connection of our metacarpals piecing together in a way that was applied pressure, communicating, and friendship,
and
camaraderie, love, and peace amongst two brothers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the YYPP Yuck Yuck Productions podcast. If you... I'm going to just edit this around the outro because the camera's about to go, but if you like what me and the Sean here are doing, we have bonus episodes. I know last time we talked about Bora? Yeah. So we did an entire episode because that was a week-long trip. So we talked about what we did after the mountain, and it was floating on the river. And it was crazy. So you get bonus episodes for just $1. And then if you'd like to become part of the intro or outro, it's $2. If you really want to help out the show and throw us a few bucks, So one day we can be doing this professionally and not from my mom's basement.
Yeah, man. It's a classic origin story we're living out right now.
Yeah. It's great. All right, everybody. Peace and love. We didn't do a second clap.